There was a wild, shouting crowd around it, but the guillotine continued to kill. Hi fellows, Charles Dickens left England to Paris to save his family servant Gabelle, who was put to prison only because he worked for a nobleman. When Charles Dickens reached Paris, he was taken to prison just because he was a nobleman too, and also he was an immigrant, and all immigrants must be put to prison. Mr. Lorry, also Jarvis Lorry, the manager of Telbank, there is an S in the end, Telsbank, also left England to sort out some papers, some paperwork about banking, to save some papers from the revolution. Now we chapter 8. In the hands of the citizen. What does it mean? When something is in the hand of someone, it means it is under the control of someone, under the custody of someone, in the hands of the citizen. I think it depicts that the whole France, the whole revolution, the life of maybe Charles Dickens is under control and custody of the citizens of France. Let's just start reading. Tellson's Bank in Paris was in a large building south of the river, close to the heart of the city, to the center of the city. Mr. Lorry had arrived in Paris some days before Charles Dickens. Remember that Jarvis Lorry departed England earlier than Charles Dickens, and was now living in some rooms above the bank. One evening, looking out of the window, he saw that a large grindstone, grindstone, had been brought into the square below. Grindstone is this object, this thick plate of stone, which is used for grinding, which is used for sharpening, or it can be used for polishing metal objects. There was a wild, shouting crowd around it, busy sharpening their knives and swords and axes, which were already red with blood. With shaking hands, Mr. Lorry closed the window. You see, there is a violent butchering. People are killing anyone they're angry at. And Mr. Lorry is here to save documents, some documents from the chaos that is happening in Paris. Save some bank documents, sort of things. Now Mr. Lorry, he had decided to go downstairs and talk to the bank guards, when suddenly the door of his room opened and Lucie and her father ran in. "Lucie, Manette, what has happened? Why are you here?" cried Mr. Lorry. "Charles is in Paris," cried Lucie. "He came to help an old family servant, but he's been taken to prison." At that moment, the shouts of the crowd outside grew louder. "What is the noise? That noise?" asked the doctor. "Don't look out!" cried Mr. Lorry. Charles Dickens is an immigrant and also a nobleman. That is why there is nowhere safe in Paris, in France, for Dickens. "My friend," said the doctor, "I am safe in Paris. I was a prisoner in the Bastille. Everybody knows about me and how I suffered. Already people want to help me. They gave us news of Charles. Even so, don't look outside. Where is Charles?" "Oh, in the prison of La Force." "La Force? Dear Lucie, you can do nothing tonight. You must go to one of the rooms here and wait. I must talk with your father at once." Lucie kissed him and left the room. Dr. Manette is viewed as a hero. For the years he has been imprisoned in Bastille. Yet he cannot save Charles Dickens. "Quick, Manette," said Mr. Lorry. "These people outside with the bloody knives that are murdering the prisoners. If you are so well known, if you have this power, talk to them, tell them who you are, and go to La Force, quick, before it is too late." Dr. Manette hurried outside. Mr. Lorry watched from the window as the doctor talked to the crowd. He had shouts of, "Long live the Bastille prisoner! Long live the Bastille prisoner! Help his friend in La Force! Help his friend in La Force!" Mr. Lorry went to Lucie and found her with the daughter and Miss Pross. Together they waited all night for news, but none came. In the morning, Mr. Lorry found rooms for Lucie and her family in a quiet street near the bank. He left Jerry Cruncher with them as a guard and returned worriedly to Tellson's. At the end of the day, a strong, serious man came to see him. Now Lucie Manette is under protection of Jarvis Lorry, and Jerry Cruncher is guarding her. And a stranger man came in. "My name is Defoe. I come from Dr. Manette. He gave me this." Defoe gave him a piece of paper. The doctor had written, "Charles is safe, but I cannot leave this place yet. Take Defoe to Lucie." "Okay." "Come with me," said Mr. Lorry happily. They went downstairs, and at the front door found Madame Defoe knitting. I really hate this woman. Without a word, she joined them, and Mr. Lorry led them to Lucie's rooms. There, Defoe gave Lucie a note from her husband. "Dearest, be brave. Oh, it's Charles. I am well. And your father has some power here. You cannot answer this, but kiss our child for me." Only a short letter, but it meant so much to Lucie. Gratefully, she kissed the hands of Defoe and his wife, Madame Defoe. Madame Defoe said nothing. Her hand was cold and heavy, and Lucie felt frightened of her. Madame Defoe is a vengeful revolutionary. She's the bloodthirstiest character of the novel. Gratefully, Lucie kissed the hands of Defoe and his wife. The scene of Lucie kissing Madame Defoe's hand and this act of knitting is becoming one of the most vicious acts of the novel. Miss Pross came in with little Lucie. "Is that his child?" asked Madame Defoe, stopping her knitting to stare. "Yes, madame," said Mr. Lorry. "That is our poor prisoner's little daughter." "It is enough, my husband," said Madame Defoe. "We can go now." Her voice was as cold as her hand. "You will be good to my husband?" asked Lucie, afraid. "I beg you, as a wife and a mother." Madame Defoe is a ruthless, a cruel woman who is willing to kill anyone to help the revolution move forward. And I think she's revolutionary out of vengeance, not out of helping the poor. "We have known many wives and mothers," said Madame Defoe, "and we have seen many husbands and fathers put in prison for many years. What is one more among so many?" As the Defoes left, Lucie turned to Mr. Lorry. "I am afraid of her than of any other person in Paris," she whispered. Mr. Lorry held her hands. He did not say anything, but he was also very worried. The doctor did not come back from La Force for several days. During that time, 1,100 prisoners were killed by the people. And I think they were all killed without a fair court, without any justice. Inside the prison, Dr. Manette had come before a tribunal. Tribunal is a group of judges who oversees a trial, a group of judges who are judging a kind of a trial. So tribunal is a group of judges, which was a group of judges appointed by the people, selected by the people. So they're not official judges, they're not actually judges, they're people. Dr. Manette must testify on behalf of Charles Dickens. It can really help. These judges made their own laws and threw prisoners out into the street to be murdered by the crowds. What kind of sentence it is to be murdered by the crowds? Dr. Manette told the tribunal that he had been a prisoner in the Bastille for 18 years and that his son-in-law was now a prisoner in La Force. The tribunal had agreed to keep Charles Dickens safe from the murdering crowd, but they would not let him leave the prison. Dr. Manette seemed to become stronger as he lived through these terrible days, doing everything he could to save his daughter's husband. He was able to see Dickens regularly, but noblemen and immigrants were hated by the citizens of New France, and Charles Dickens was both of them. And the doctor could not set Dickens free. To set someone free means to let someone go, to let someone free out of prison. At the beginning of the story, Charles Dickens was on trial at Old Bailey because he's a Frenchman. He was and is a Frenchman, and he's a nobleman from every Mons family, and he was accused of spying. He was hiding his identity, and now he's on trial again. They want to execute him. The guillotine, that new machine of death, cut off the heads of many, many people, the powerful and the cruel, but also the beautiful, the innocent, and the good. Each day, Lucie did not know if her husband would live or die. She lived every moment in great fear, but her father was sure that he could save his son-in-law. 1 year and 3 months passed, and Dickens was still in prison. Dr. Manette now had an official job as a doctor in 3 prisons and was able to visit Dickens regularly. He became more and more loved by the rough people of the revolution. Rough means rude, ill-mannered, rude people, ill-mannered people. But the guillotine continued to kill. The French Revolution is one of the bloodthirstiest period of history. It's famous for the terror, for the chaos, for the extreme violence that had been happening at the beginning of the revolution mostly. "Try not to worry," he told Lucie. "We are seeing a picture of Dickens, still in prison, helpless. Nothing can happen to Charles. I know that I can save him." But Lucie could not see him or visit him. She could not even write to him. On the day when Charles Dickens was at last called for his trial, Lucie and Dr. Manette hurried to Tellson's bank to tell Mr. Lorry. As they arrived, a man got up and disappeared into another room. They did not see who it was, but in fact, it was Sidney Cartoon, just arrived from London, the man who resembled Charles Dickens. A quick-witted an intelligent lawyer, but an alcoholic one. There were 5 judges in the tribunal, and the trials were short and simple. The voices of truth, honesty, and calm reason were never heard at these trials, and most of the prisoners were sent to the guillotine, which pleased the noisy crowds. 15 prisoners were called before Donay that day, and in no more than an hour and a half, all of them had been condemned to death. Charles Everymond, who is called Donay. As Donay walked in front of the judges, he tried to remember the careful advice that Dr. Manette had given him. Charles Everymond, you are an immigrant. All immigrants must die. That is the new law of France. Now people are shouting, "Kill him! Kill him!" shouted the people. "Cut off his head! He's an enemy of the people!" They're murdering noblemen, servants of noblemen, sometimes peasants, anyone with power, maybe business owners, land owners, and foreigners. The president of the judges asked Donay, "Is it true that you lived many years in England?" "Yes, that is true," replied Donay. "So you are an immigrant, surely?" "No, not in the meaning of the law," replied Donay. "I earn my own living in England. I have never wanted or used the name of Marquis, and I did not want to live by the work of the poor people of France. So I went to live and work in England, long before the Revolution." "And did you marry in England?" "Yes, I married a French woman, the daughter of Dr. Manette, a prisoner of Bastille and a well-known friend of all good citizens." Yes, these sentences are very wise and kind, thanks to Dr. Manette's advice. These words had a happy effect on the crowd. Those who had shouted for his death now shouted for his life. Then Monsieur Gabelle and Dr. Manette spoke for Charles Donay. This is the second time that Dr. Manette is saving his life, because once in Old Bailey, at Old Bailey's court, Dr. Manette was there to help Charles Donay, and this is the second time that he is speaking for him. The doctor spoke well and clearly and was very popular with the crowd. When he had finished, the judges decided that the prisoner should be set free, and the crowd shouted their agreement loudly. Soon they were carrying Donay in a chair through the streets of Paris to Dr. Manette's house. Lucie was waiting there, and when she ran out and fell into the arms of her husband, the men and women in the crowd kissed one another and danced for happiness. Donay and Lucie were together again, safe and happy. Lucie didn't know about the true identity of Charles Donay, that he is not Charles Donay, he is Charles Marquis, and now she knows the truth. "I told that I would save him," said Lucie's father proudly. "Well, I have saved him, and you must not worry now." But Lucie was still worried. So many innocent men and women had died for no reason, and every day brought more death. A shadow of fear and hate lay over France, and no one knew what dangers the next day would bring. It was not possible to leave Paris at once, as Charles did not have the necessary papers. They must leave quietly and hoped to leave as soon as they could. But that night, when Dr. Manette Charles and Lucie were sitting together. They heard a loud knock on the door. That doesn't look good. Or it might be Sydney Cartoon. Sydney Cartoon and Charles Dickens were once friends. Of course, they disliked each other, but... "What can this be?" said Lucie, trembling. "Hi, Charles, save him!" "My child," said the doctor, "I have saved him. He is a free man." But when he opened the door, 4 rough men pushed their way into the room. The citizen, every mood, is again the prisoner of the people. The title of this chapter is "In the Hands of the Citizens," and citizens are doing anything they want to do. The citizen every moment, where is he? He is again the prisoner of the people. "I am here," said Donay. "But why am I again a prisoner?" "You are accused by citizens of Saint-Antoine." Madame Defarge. Dr. Manette had said nothing. He seemed to be made of stone. Means expressionless. Made of stone means expressionless. Without any expression, without any emotion. But suddenly he spoke. "Will you tell me who has accused my son-in-law?" Dr. Manette. "I shouldn't tell you this," said one of the men. "But citizen Everymond, called Donay, is accused by Monsieur and Madame Defarge, and by one other person." "What other?" "You will hear that tomorrow," replied the man. Yes, Madame Defarge is definitely the antagonist of this novel, the bloodthirstiest person in the revolution, and I guess she's going to frame Donay. Do you know the meaning of these words? Grindstone, tribunal, sets free, and wrath. And if you want to know what is going to happen to Charles Donay, just follow this series in the next video.